Hello everyone, I'm Arunima from Knit and Otter, and in this video I'm going to show you how to create an I-cord border. I have a separate video where I explain how to make an I-cord. This one is just for making a border for a shawl, for instance. So this is a mosaic crochet shawl that I made a while back, and I made a I-cord border for it. So this is how it looks. It I love how it worked up. It gives it this nice looking seamless curved border here. It is easy to make. It just takes a little bit of time and patience, but I think it's worth the effort. It is because this is Tunisian crochet, this curls a little, so it gives it that gives it a little bit of additional weight, so it helps with the curling, and blocking takes care of the rest of it. But I think this is a great technique to know for creating borders. So if you ever wanted to create one for your projects, you could. So this is a triangle shawl. So I'm going to show you how to make this border for a triangle shawl, but you could use the same technique for any other shape as well. So we'll do the edge here. We'll start from a corner, we'll do the edge, and we'll do the center corner as well. So you'll know what to do when you reach this center point of the triangle. And I will show you how to start, how to bind off, so all of that. Let's get started. I made small triangular swatch to show you how to do this on a triangle shawl. And I'm going to, um, and this is a swatch of Tunisian simple stitches, but it could be anything. It could be a mosaic pattern, it could be any other stitch. So I'm going to tell you how to go about making that border with whatever stitches you are using. Um, I have not I have not made a bind off row, and that's intentional, so I've stopped here. If you have if you want to use a different color, or if you have cut your yarn, or for whatever reason, it's okay. You could just attach your yarn at the edge stitch over here, the first edge stitch, by picking up those two vertical bars, and that's where you'd start from. So for as of now, in this video, I've not cut the yarn. I'm going to use the same yarn, so I'm going to show you how to make the I-cord border with this. So I'm going to use this is a Tunisian crochet hook. It could be a traditional crochet hook as well. It's completely up to you which one you'd like to use. So we're going to make a 4-stitch I-cord, so you need to be able to hold 4 loops on the hook at once. I'm also going to use another hook, which is this one. It's slightly smaller than the one I have here. This is to hold loops the loops of the I-cord while we're working on the I-cord, and you'll see why. So I have a separate tutorial where I explain how to make an I-cord, a standalone I-cord, and I'm not going to do that here, so you're welcome to go check that video out. But in this video, I'm going to show you how to make the I-cord and while attaching it with the fabric over here. So to begin, I'm going to make, since this is a 4-stitch I-cord, I'm going to make 3 chains. So I'll tell you why. That's 1, 2, 3. Because we'll make 3 stitches in this foundation chain here. This will be the foundation chain for the I-cord, and then the 4th stitch will be how you attach your I-cord to the fabric. So here I have 1 loop on the hook, and I'm going to make my foundation row stitches in the back loops. So there's 1 and 2. That gives me a total of 3. And the 4th one, so the first one I'm always just going to go in between the first stitch on the previous row and the next stitch. So that's in between here, and I'm going to pull that a loop, and that's the foundation for my I-cord border. Now let's move on to the next row. For the next row, I'm going to use this hook. I'm going to pick up 3 loops out of 4 and move them to this. So it's 1, 2, and 3. So I picked up those 3 loops and moved them to this hook, and I made this really tight, and I'll tell you why. Just make this tight. So now for the next row, I'm going to leave this loop on the hook, I'm going to yarn over and pull through. That's the first stitch of this next row. For the next stitch, I'm going to pick up one loop from this other hook and do a yarn over and pull through. And for the next, so in a normal I-cord, I just do that for every loop on this hook, but because I'm attaching it to this fabric here, I'm going to pick up both of these and then yarn over and pull through both. So that gives me 3 loops on the hook, and I can use the fourth one to attach to this fabric. So the fourth one will be based off of the pattern. So according to my pattern for this swatch, I started with a full stitch. There's a full stitch increase in the pattern. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to again go in the same space because that's where a full stitch increase would happen. I'm going to go into the same space as where I joined earlier, and I'm going to yarn over, pull through. So that gives me the 4 loops that I was looking for. Now to make the third row, I'm going to move 3 loops to this other hook. And I'm going to pull this tight, and then I'm going to yarn over, pull through, and pick one loop from here, yarn over, pull through, and then pick 2 loops. It's a little hard because I've pulled it tight, but that is intentional. Pick these 2 loops and then yarn over, pull through both. And now for the fourth loop, I'm going to follow the pattern again. So the pattern says after a full stitch, I need to make a Tunisian simple stitch. So I'm going to insert my hook in the next vertical bar like I was making a Tunisian simple stitch, yarn over and pull through. So that completed this row, and we joined with this stitch as we would make a Tunisian simple stitch. So we have 4 loops on the hook, and this is how it's looking at the back right now. It's not that pretty, but it will start looking better after we made a few rows. So I'm going to continue. I'll show you how to make a couple more rows, and then we'll move on to the center point. So moving 3 loops to this other hook, and then pull tight, then yarn over, pull through, and pick this loop, yarn over, pull through, and then pick 2, 1 and 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. And then the next stitch is also a Tunisian simple stitch in my pattern, so I'm going to pick this like I were making a Tunisian simple stitch, yarn over, pull through. So that gives me 4 loops on the hook. I'm picking 3 here, and yarn over, pull through, and pick 1 back, yarn over, pull through, and then pick 2, 1 and 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. So this is a pattern where I'm going to make Tunisian simple stitches all the way until I reach this middle point. So if your pattern calls for a different stitch, you can do that instead. So if the pattern called for a Tunisian reverse stitch, so you could just insert your hook here instead of like you were making a Tunisian reverse stitch, and that would be your 4th loop. But mine says simple stitch, so I'm just going to do a simple stitch, but you could experiment with this. I haven't tried a lot of other stitches with this border, but it would be worth experimenting. I think it's a really good border to create for your shawls. And if you don't want to do other stitches, it might be possible to just make a final row of Tunisian simple stitches and make the border with that. So that's also fine. It's just something that you could try and see how it looks, and if it doesn't look good enough, then you could try something else. So just the technique would not change. It's just this join that would change, and you could do it based on what the pattern calls for. So I'm going to make this simple stitch, and let me show you how it's looking in the back. So you see here, it's now starting to look a little tight. It was loose in the beginning, but it is a little tight now. That is That happens because we pull this strand tight when we move the stitches to this hook. That sort of closes this and makes a sort of a tube, and that's what gives it a neat look as you're building it. So I'm going to go all the way and make my stitches until I reach this point. Here is the center. So I'm going to reach here, this stitch here, and I'm going to meet you at that point. Okay, I'm getting close to the center here, but I decided to show you one more thing before I got there, and that's how to save your uh, I-cord in case you lose a stitch. And I have had that happen earlier where I I missed a stitch and I had to unravel, and I just didn't know where to stop, so I had to unravel all the way. Until I figured out how this thing works exactly. And I now I think I know how to unravel without what I call is using a lifeline. I think they use it in knitting. This seems similar to that. So I have started to use a lifeline so that even if I miss a stitch or I make a mistake, I can frog or unravel until a certain point without having to go all the way. And I use a stitch marker for that, but you could use a spare strand of yarn or anything else that you like. But what I like to do is, so now I have, after completing this row, I have 4 loops on my hook. I'm just going to go in the back and I'm going to pick them all and put a stitch marker here. And that's going to save this row. If I make a mistake anywhere further, I can always come back to this instead of having to unravel all the way. I'll show you how this works. Now, I have these 4 loops on the hook. I'm just going to do what I was doing earlier. I'm going to move 3 loops to the other hook and then pull this tight and yarn over, pull through, and then pick the next loop and yarn over, pull through, and then pick the last 2 loops just like earlier. This becomes a little hard with this because my with the stitch marker because my hook keeps slipping, but it's just I do it after every few rows, so it's not too much work. It's worth keeping the marker here, and I'll show you why. So here I picked 2 loops and I yarn over and pull through 2, and I'm going to insert my hook as if I were making a simple stitch and yarn over, pull through. So that's 4 loops on the hook. I'm going to make one more row and then show you what happens if I make a mistake. So I'm here and I yarn over, pull through, and I pick this, yarn over, pull through, and I'm going to make a deliberate mistake. I'm going to yarn over, pull through separately. So I did not decrease. So now I'm here and I need to unravel. So instead of unraveling all the way, which I would have done, so I'll show you here, if I open this up and I unravel, so these are the 4 loops I need to pick up back on my hook, and it can be very difficult because I need to pick them in the right direction. So it should be, every loop should be facing this way. And it is doable, but I have had in the past where while trying to do that, I've missed stitches and I have to unravel a lot of rows. So now what I'm going to do, because I have that lifeline there, I'm just going to pull, and I have these 4 loops on this hook, and I'm just going to insert my hook here, pick all of these 4 stitches, and I can start working from here again. So you could do this every few rows, or you could do it as often or as you like. It's completely up to you. I do it after every 10 or 15 rows, so the maximum that I have to unravel is 10 or 15 rows. But I just wanted to show you how useful this is. I've struggled in the past where I've had to unravel a large portion of my I-cord because I couldn't figure out how to pick my stitches back up. So this, I think, is a great way. You could use a strand of yarn or anything that would save these four loops for you. So I'm going to continue making this, and I'm going to see you after I reach this point right here. So this will be my last simple stitch, and I'm going to finish that, and I'm going to show you. I've completed this from the beginning all the way until here. This was my last simple stitch in on this side, and let me show you how it's looking in the back. This is how it is. I really like how seamless this is. This little tube at the end, it looks beautiful. It's just really pretty. It takes a lot of work, and but I love it, and I think I'm going to use it in more patterns in the future. But here's one more thing. There's this lifeline that we have, and if I just take this out, it's not going to affect the I-cord one bit. So here's how it's looking, and I'm going to go ahead and attach that here because while making my I-cord for this video, I have had to unravel a couple of times already, and this lifeline was very helpful. So here it goes. Now, I'm here at the center. So usually for a triangle shawl, you will have a couple of increases around this part. And in my pattern, I have a knit stitch and a Tunisian simple stitch in the same stitch. So that's what I'm going to do for my next rows. So let's just go ahead and I'll start making the next row. So I'm going to pick up 3 loops here. And just what I was doing earlier, yarn over, pull through, pick up the next one, yarn over, pull through, and pick up the next 2. And yarn over, pull through. And for the next stitch, I'm going to insert my hook as if I were going to make a knit stitch because that's what the pattern calls for. I'm going to make the next row and just move 3 loops here. Yarn over, pull through, pick another loop, yarn over, pull through, pick 2 loops. Yarn over, pull through 2, and the next stitch is a simple stitch in the same stitch. So this was a knit stitch first in that stitch and then a simple stitch in the same stitch. And I'm going to make the next row now, which is, I'll tell you what the pattern is. Let me just get to that point. So here I have 3 loops on the hook, and my next stitch is a twisted Tunisian simple stitch. So I'm going to insert my hook from the opposite side and bring it out at the top. So there are multiple twisted stitches. You could twist and go down. That's not the one we're looking for. Twist and go up, and then yarn over, pull through. So that's the 4th loop on the hook. And in the next row, and the next stitch is, so this was a twisted Tunisian simple stitch. The next stitch is a twisted Tunisian knit stitch. So what it means is, like, normally we'd make a knit stitch by inserting the hook between the 2 vertical bars from this side, but we're going to now make it twist these. So move this one on this side and insert it here. So this twisted knit stitch helps us because it's already twisted the stitch. So I just have to go in this direction and insert the hook as if making a twisted knit stitch, yarn over, pull through. So that's the next row. And for the next row, I'm going to make a Tunisian simple stitch. So this one and simple stitch. So you see that we're binding off as we're going. we're binding off this row and we're making the border as we're going. So this is doing two things at once. And the rest of this is going to be exactly the same. So I'm going to come to this point and show you how to end the I-cord. So this is how it's looking so far. I moved this light line over here, and I wanted to show you how it's in the back. It's nice and pretty seamless. That's what I love about it. And I'm at this point where I've made all my simple stitches, and my last stitch on this row is supposed to be a Tunisian full stitch. So I'm going to do that. Another row. And then insert my hook in between the next two stitches. So yeah, it's really hard to find, but this is how the row is. This is how the row is originally. This is where I made my Tunisian simple stitch, and this is the space in between the simple stitch and the last stitch. So this is where I'm going to insert my hook and make my Tunisian full stitch. And that's one row. Now I'm going to make the last row of the I-cord, which will also, so we will join with this last edge stitch here, and we will also bind off the I-cord as we go. So to do that, we'll start the same way as earlier. We'll move 3 loops to the other hook and yarn over, pull through, and then we pick 1 loop from this hook and yarn over, pull through. Instead of leaving 2 loops on the hook, we just slip. So there's 1 loop on the hook. Next, we're going to pick 2 loops and yarn over, pull through 2, and we're going to pull through the loop on the hook as well. So there. And the last one is this join. So I'm going to pick up the edge stitch, which is the 2 vertical bars here, yarn over, pull through, and then slip. So that completes the I-cord border. This is how it's looking after completing. If you follow this tutorial exactly, you will get equal number of stitches on both sides of the center. And that was my aim. You will get an even I-cord. If you look at the back, I love how seamless, how neat this is. Because we pull tight now when we have the loops on the hook, on this hook, it sort of it joins the first stitch of every I-cord to the last stitch of the I-cord in every row, and that is what curls this or turns this fabric, and this becomes sort of a tube. And you can see here, because we followed the pattern and we followed the increases, that is why this worked up okay. This is sitting flat. If we had not done that, then we wouldn't have increased as expected and this would not sit flat. But it is still possible that this may not sit flat for you, and that's okay. It is okay to add more rows in the I-cord. Just make sure that you're doing equal number of rows on both sides so it is even. And I know that this is a little hard. It took me a while to make the border on my shawl here, because this is fingering weight yarn, and it was a lot of rows, a lot of stitches. So, but it is extremely satisfying. I love how this turned out. Um I think I'm going to use this again, even if I have large projects. So. Uh, Just wanted to tell you how satisfying it is to see this border on my shawl. You can use the same technique to create a border for any shape. You just have to make sure that you're following the pattern of the last row so that you have the increases as needed, and just follow the pattern, and possibly decreases as well. So if it's a straight edge, or if it's a square with 4 corners, every corner or every edge would just follow the pattern that the last row of the pattern has. So you create the I-cord and you just follow the last row's pattern. And that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you will enjoy making your I-cord borders. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And I have a bunch of Tunisian crochet patterns and tutorials on my blog and YouTube channel. Feel free to check them out. And I hope I will see you in my other videos. Bye bye.